Hello, everybody, and welcome to NTFWFC-TC1-STURP.
It's my favorite wrestling league.
Netflix's Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy, Chapter 1, Siege, the Unofficial Recap Podcast, a subsidiary of the Can We Talk About podcast.
Whoa!
For those of you joining us for the first time, if there are any of you, I am the hostess with the mostest, neither Autobot nor Decepticon. My name is Joe.
If I were leading the Seekers, I would be Kristen. I'm Kristen.
Along with probably everybody else on the planet here, Kristen, we have decided to take just a little lateral movement from the main podcast timeline.
Just a little jump to the side.
It's just, and a step to the right, of course.
I was gonna say that, goddamn you.
Yeah, because Kristen, suddenly there's more Transformers content, and with only 6 episodes, it's a nice little jaunt we could do, because fuck it.
Yeah, the idea of watching a cartoon with modern writing appealed to me. Because I am enjoying Transformers Generation 1 very much, I am. But man, sometimes I'm like, lest I need to remind you this was your idea.
It is. No, you're right. This isn't something that you were like, Joe, we need to stop doing Transformers. I was like, we should do this other thing because, I mean, I'm in a similar position, Kristen, where I'm looking at it, I'm like, God, I don't want to watch this today. Let's watch the other Transformers thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi or girl bandness that Gem did. It's fun in a different way, so it's a small break. We haven't been doing movies, so
yeah,
we need a break sometimes.
It's also Transformers Generation 1, the cartoon, very chaotic, while this, at least in the first episode, a little low-key.
Extremely easy to understand.
Characters limited.
No, the subtitles put the name of who's speaking.
You have a leg up in terms of knowing some of these people already as well.
I know the majority of these characters, and I think the ones that I don't already know from the cartoon I've at least heard of.
So everything is set up nice, it's animated well enough, I guess.
I like the quality of the animation. Everyone looks like weird cut metal. I don't like the lips, really.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that.
We can't do anything about that, though.
The matter at hand here, Netflix's Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Chapter 1 Siege, with the very creative Episode 1 title, Kristen. Episode 1.
Nice.
We start in the air, Kristen. I'm sure you were very excited to see that the very first Transformer on screen happens to be with the image of the toy of Starscream that you own.
Yeah, it's my man. Except mine's broken because I still haven't glued his wings back on because I bought him at a thrift shop.
That's right, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. So we're flying over a laser-filled battlefield here. We really don't get back to this, and it's a nice kind of tone set as to what we're dealing with here. Not going to be anything like Bumblebee playing arcade games, getting high scores, and making Carly want to bone him.
Yeah, I do want to point out my flawless reading comprehension. Despite knowing what the name of this series was, my brain was like, wait a minute, is this whole thing going to be on the Cybertron? At least I figured it out within the opening, and not later.
Something we can kind of go into is the fact that the War for Cybertron toy line is going on right now, has been for a year and a half or so, and Siege being last year's toy line, last year being 2019. This year is Earthrise, so we could get there in Chapter 2 sometime far along.
I mean, there's a space bridge.
It's going to be a year before we see gross human characters.
Ew, I can't wait. Oh, Joe, but what if it's live action humans?
Oh, what? Mixed in with CG rope?
Yes.
Wow, that sounds horrible.
I don't know, I like it.
It reminded me, just to go off on a tangent already here, Kristen, there was a video I was watching of the endings of Tekken 2 recently, and the one for King, you know King, he's got the Jaguar mask, and he's a wrestler.
Yes. Why do I feel like I thought he was a Jaguar person?
Tekken 2 is 97, I want to say, so very early arcade CG, and his ending involves him leaving Christmas presents for orphans, and all of these orphans, Kristen, are live action, so it's very jarring.
No confusion there.
So this is going to take a bit of a dark tone, obviously. There's a war going on, skies are dark, Cybertron is all battle-ravaged and shit.
I had absolutely no idea what to expect, besides your commentary to me beforehand where you just called Bumblebee an asshole, and I was like, that's interesting. For all I knew, the tone was going to be identical to the cartoon, and I was like, it's all the same, except Bumblebee's a dick.
Bumblebee does not endear himself to the audience in his first kind of introduction here, as a Seeker crashes, and then we kind of pan over, and I got similar vibes to the first episode of More Than Meets the Eye, because we start with Wheeljack and Bumblebee there.
Yes, we do, except for some reason Bumblebee is the savior. sage. I was gonna say sage Italian, but obviously that's not true. He's taking the lead here instead of Wheeljack.
I'm not a fan of what initially happens, where the very first words are Wheeljack tripping and going, "I'm sorry," and Bumblebee, who looks so fucking pissed, the face on him in this series, he just looks over and is like glaring, like, "Shut up!"
Joe, can you please enlighten our maybe 2 listeners about what it is that you're wrong about, why Bumblebee is actually good here, because he resembles a certain anime boy?
Well, Kristen, you told me that Bumblebee is Cloud Strife in this scenario, and I know absolutely nothing about Final Fantasy VII.
I know only slightly more than nothing about Final Fantasy VII because I played Final Fantasy VII Remake, which barely covers any of the original game at all. And I don't know if it's like this at all in the original, but with all our fancy voice acting and good animation, body language, yeah, Bumblebee is just straight up Cloud Strife. So actually, he's hot. I'm Carly now.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this Bumblebee because maybe it's just because I'm used to Bumblebee playing arcade games, being kind of goofy, laid back, got a smile on his face. I don't think this motherfucker cracks a single smile in this episode.
Me being able to look at him and go, this literally feels exactly like what they were going for, made it a lot easier for me to digest.
Now, I wrote in my notes that it might be a swing too far in the opposite direction, but then again, I don't know anything about the Transformers comics really either. So if this is a character direction that Bumblebee has taken in the last 10 years, I would not have known, and I apologize.
I'm just used to seeing Bumblebee cartoon man with a big old smile, but I'm also not particularly attached to Bumblebee.
We have a Seeker arrive here after Wheeljack trips and tries to scan the area for life, but Bumblebee and Wheeljack do manage to hide out of sight, and Bumblebee...
Do some solid snaking.
Bumblebee hits his character note, which I think he does in every single line that he speaks in this episode as well. He hits it to Wheeljack as his very first line of dialogue. "You want to know how I survive out here? I don't make noise, and I don't draw attention to myself."
And Wheeljack is like, "Woo-woo, I'm sorry." Which is an interesting way to take Wheeljack.
Wheeljack kind of turns more into Wheeljack as the episode goes on, but this first scene, I'm like, who is this?
Yes, he definitely does. This only very vaguely subtly Italian man is a bit of a wisecracker. Man, I love Wheeljack.
So we find that Bumblebee is not an Autobot, actually. He was hired by Wheeljack specifically to search for some Energon, because the Autobots are in disarray. They are not in terribly good shape, and they need some Energon.
They're straight up dying.
Yeah, they're laying in the halls of the Ark here, just dying.
Yeah, it's not going great. There's a scene like that with a bunch of robot people in Detroit become human, except David Cage is a hack.
Bumblebee leads Wheeljack to what seems like a dead end, and immediately, and not for the last time this episode, mind you, a gun is pulled on Bumblebee as Wheeljack is like, "Look, I don't have time to fuck around. Come on. I don't like dead ends."
And Bumblebee's like, "Well, good thing there's a secret hidden panel here." And opens a giant door that Wheeljack probably should have realized was a door.
Yeah, and there are giant-looking Energon tanks, which will apparently only keep the Autobots in the fight for a few more cycles, presumably a few more days. How quickly is Energon consumed, Kristen?
See, I was gonna say cycles sounds long to me, but I guess you would know more about the robo terminology than I would.
Optimus uses astrocycles later when referring to Wheeljack nearly being murdered by the Seekers.
Oh, you're right. What the fuck? That's strange.
Who knows?
Maybe he was purposefully playing it down. Like, oh wow, all this Energon, well, we should be good for at least a couple of days.
No,
or either that or all of the Autobots are really hurt.
They're really hurt, Kristen.
So they're super hurt. They gotta dunk everyone in that Energon first before they do anything else with it.
There's also a space bridge here, and we get a little bit of world building where space bridges are commonplace. You use them to get around to other planets and things that aren't just Earth.
Apparently once the war started, Megatron was like, no more of that shit, and stranded everyone. He didn't want any more races or whatever. Bumblebee talks about what he used to do on other planets.
Yeah, he mentions Velocitron, which is from the series Transformers Cybertron, which got kind of retroactively added into the main continuity, which is nice. I like that.
Cool. All these little, I was going to say Easter eggs, but they are straight up references for people like you who know these things.
So Kristen, stupid idiot Wheeljack here starts fucking around with the space bridge and, starts powering it up, and Bumblebee, I understand why he gets angry at this point, because he's like, look, let's get the Energon and go. Let us go. We gotta go.
So this ends up being a big old oopsie. Because Bumblebee is like, yo, they're gonna find us, immediately. And guess what? They get found by the Seekers, immediately.
Yeah, they waste no time here. There is enough time, at least, where Wheeljack has to, hit Bumblebee with, you can't keep being a centrist. You gotta choose a side.
Come on, man.
And Kristen, the Seekers arrive here along with some really tall guy. Who is that tall guy?
It's Jetfire, who is just Skyfire.
And I don't think we need to have the Jetfire Skyfire conversation again, but yes.
But I knew that.
I'm glad you know at least, but yes, here is Jetfire.
I was confused as to why the fuck ass-face Skyfire was like, Decepticon. Because he was a centrist in the original cartoon.
Well, they got to him early, I guess, Kristen. Indoctrinated.
I guess so. He's a dick. I guess I like him more than him being a weird sad sack, though. We'll see. I really hope he just dies. He's the guy that Starscream seems to want to actually topple instead of Megatron, which maybe we've had this conversation about Starscream makes slightly more sense that Megatron keeps him around if he's not actively trying to kill Megatron all of the time.
We get the cold open at this point as the Autobots are surrounded by... I refer to them as the Autobots here. Obviously, Bumblebee will say 90 times in this episode. Not much to write home about the theme song here. It's just general, kind of low orchestral fare, I guess, or is it kind of...
I don't even remember there being a theme song.
I don't even remember. Yeah, it doesn't last. There's no Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. It's just sounds.
There's no toilet that they get flushed down. Will that make sense to anyone who didn't hear you describe that the first time?
Refer to the season 2 opening as that, yes.
Okay.
So, immediately we start back with Jetfire and the Seekers here. Starscream is also here, and Bumblebee, once being called an Autobot, goes, I am not an Autobot, which all of Bumblebee's lines in this episode start with, I am not an Autobot from this point forward, pretty much.
Or, fuck you guys, stop asking me to do things. Or, fuck you, pay me.
Thundercracker's name dropped here doesn't really offer much. He just scans Bumblebee. This entire sequence takes 30 seconds, which was a nice time for me to catch up on my notes here, because just scans Bumblebee, no information found on him, scans Wheeljack, that is Wheeljack, Wheeljack is an Autobot. Yes, I don't know if that's for the audience, but yeah, I got it, cool. I'm good.
I guess so, sure. I already knew that, so it's nothing they needed to tell a big Transformers fan like me.
Despite the fact that Bumblebee is not an Autobot, it doesn't really matter, because Starscream says that looters are to be shot on sight, first of all, and Autobots are especially to be shot on sight.
This seems to contradict what the actual, procedure is for finding just other Transformers up and around Cybertron. Because Megatron briefly mentions later that ideally they would like to be like, hey, do you want to be a Decepticon first?
Starscream doesn't operate that way, I guess, Kristen.
No, he seems even smaller and even more full of piss. And I'm a big fan.
So I thought Jetfire was going to be a Decepticon for all of 2 minutes, and he was going to be revealed he'll pull off the sticker of his badge and be like, hey, actually, no, it's me, Skyfire.
I kind of did think that was going to happen too. Yeah, he laser cuts off Starscream's arm because he's being a jerk. And then he's just like, hey, that was just because I don't fucking like you.
Yeah, as it turns out, this wasn't him turning on the Decepticons. It was him pulling rank, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Starscream does a little oh, Jesus. He gets his arm back later. It's fine.
And as you said, Starscream's a little less ambitious currently, at least, where he says, it just pulls out, first of 2 times, if I were in charge of the Seekers, you'd be dead, and they'd be dead, and everyone would be dead, actually.
He says specifically that Jetfire would be dead by his hand. By my hand.
And Wheeljack goes, you mean that hand?
He cracks wise. I love it.
And after Wheeljack makes this remark, Thundercracker punches him in the face, right in his light-up ears, I wrote.
Ow.
So Starscream manages to successfully perform a mutiny with the Seekers immediately as well here by just saying, we gotta kill them, and kill Jetfire too, because we need to kill everyone, I guess. Because he sucks, yes.
I like this Starscream voice actor a lot.
Megatron's fine. Optimus, I'm meh about.
They're both, Megatron and Optimus is people who I have zero feelings about in the original cartoon. I at least appreciate that they're given some personality and the approximation of their tones, the Peter Cullen note, I feel, is being at least approximated. Does that make any sense? Was that word salad, or did I say anything?
They do a good job of sounding like Optimus and Megatron should sound without actually fully ripping off Peter Cullen and Frank Welker. Yes.
And they are saying more interesting things than usual, which is nice.
So this mutiny of the Seekers is stopped as Big Lips Megatron arrives here. And Kristen, his lips are big.
They're a little bit too big, some might say.
And when Megatron arrives here, he immediately takes a dig at Starscream by being like, did these Autobots cut off your arm there, my man?
And well, I don't know why he just doesn't defend himself by being like, no, actually, it was my boss.
Megatron kind of lays out his plan here, his general worldview. I guess he's a bit more complex. He's not just evil man trying to do evil things. He is an evil man doing evil things, but he is not so fully evil man doing evil things that he is pwang everywhere.
We see him giving a speech later on a giant screen surrounded by black flags. So...
I wanted to ask, why is there fabric on Cybertron? But I decided, no, that's fine. I don't need to ask that.
I also thought that. But yeah, I was like, let's not worry about it. So Starscream is like, we should be killing all the Autobots. And we have the first, I don't know, SAT word of this episode where Megatron says that they're not trying to commit genocide.
The war was started as a revolution, not a genocide. So there we go. That's Megatron's viewpoint. Starscream's viewpoint is, I'm from Cybertron and I say kill them all. Where Megatron is, look, let's try to offer a hand first, and then when they slap our hand away, then we cut off their head.
Yeah, perfect. So we do have, again, a little bit more of later game terminology of Megatron saying that he wants to reach the sparks in the minds of the Autobots, and then kill them if it doesn't work out.
We cut to Optimus, who is making his way here, just barreling through the streets of Cybertron. Megatron wants to see an end to this war. He puts his hand on Wheeljack's shoulder, like, look, the Autobots are desperate. You're out here, you're hiring some shitty yellow Energon scrapper guy. There's no need to keep going like this. Just join the Decepticon cause, and I could give you, everything you need, and we'll be fine. And
Wheeljack has a cross-stitch pillow on him that he reads off of, and it says, freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Beans, yes.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings is the thing on the quote from Optimus on his bio card from the Generation 1 packaging, which has been kind of thrust into the general mantra of Optimus Prime as a result.
Cool, I didn't know that, and whatever. Megatron does recognize it as something Optimus said. Apparently, they have a past. They're ex-boyfriends.
I read it more like they're brothers.
No, ex-boyfriends. Joe, we have from the source material with the real doll and everything. Megatron's obsessed with Optimus. Come on, that is not brotherhood.
Yeah, that's true.
And Kimber and Stormer were only friends.
They're sisters.
No, Joe.
Wait a minute. No, Jerrica is Kimber's sister. Or Jem, depending on the episode.
No, not Jem.
So Megatron cites these words as honorable but senseless, and then Starscream is like, wait a minute, I see an opening. So he sort of recontextualizes his argument from before.
Let me lay this one on you.
So they're using the words of Optimus Prime against you, and they're Autobots, and that one's a looter, and they are spitting in your face, so shoot him.
Judge Starscream says, death, death.
Bumblebee, again, notes he is not an Autobot, and here is where we see Megatron's perspective of this, where he calls Centrist Bumblebee a coward.
Mm-hmm. He's like, at least Wheeljack is like, yeah, fucking kill me, I'm an Autobot.
Yeah, he wears his fate with pride, and then Megatron orders the execution of both of them to Skyfire, Jetfire, whomever, and Jetfire seems a little like, are you sure?
Warrior Poet Jetfire.
He is kind of, he doesn't want to kill the Autobots, it seems like, and he will fuck around with his own men to prevent them from being killed. So the seeds are there, I think, in terms of Skyfire being an Autobot eventually.
He's going to have to cross sides eventually, and then Starscream's going to get his wish and lead the Seekers. And then he's going to be like, next up, I'm Megatron.
We build the suspense here long enough. Really, there's no reason that they should not have been blasted to shit, because we take 8 seconds here after, he ordered, Skyfire is just ordering an execution style. All right, Seekers, to arms. Aim! And then Optimus arrives here, which, for some reason, it grabs everyone else's attention. This is the leader of the enemy cell, as it were.
Yeah. In retrospect, I feel like this hold-up scene goes on too long. Because they're really just there chit-chatting, and they fight a little bit, and words are exchanged, and then they fight a little bit more, and then another person shows up, and then another person shows up, and it's like, 3 characters are introduced in this scene, and that come in and be like, it's me.
Every character other than Wheeljack and Bumblebee are introduced in this way, basically. We just keep piling on.
Well, people show up, but we don't get, like, Starscream walking from the shadows like Megatron. They're like, holy shit, it's Megatron.
That's true. Yeah, Megatron gets a big intro, Optimus gets a big intro. Alita doesn't. She's just a sniper, and we don't get her name. We find that Megatron has offered Optimus some sort of treaty. The terms of this treaty are not known. Optimus thinks it's bad, and it will condemn all of Cybertron to slavery if he...
Sounds like a raw deal.
...signs it. Sounds bad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here we get some influence of the comics version of Megatron, because the cartoon has, like, 9 different origins for Megatron, as far as I remember.
Oh, here's the other thing really quick while we're talking about stuff about Megatron's base character. The boy is a tank.
He is a tank, yes, which is...
That's exciting, because I was looking at the scale of him being like, how are they going to turn this shit into a gun?
Kristen, after the G1 cartoon, Megatron was a gun 0 times, I want to say.
Honestly, good.
Occasional figures and things, like he would, just to reference, like, hey, he used to be a gun, remember? But, like, every Megatron starting from, like, 1990 has been a tank or a jet of some sort, I'm pretty sure.
I like the tank. That's what I remember me first knowing Megatron as.
He was a truck in one of the movies, but I don't care about that.
Lame. Don't care.
So, Megatron in the comics was, I don't know this exactly, but he was like a, not slave, I want to say. He says, to Optimus, what do you know about slavery, when I was in the Energon mines and fighting in the gladiator pits?
I prefer the term unpaid intern.
There you go. Megatron was an unpaid intern working in the Energon mines and or the gladiatorial pits, and had a similar kind of rise to a resistance and like a revolution and things like that to topple a rule that was kinda, I don't want to say Star Wars-y, like a fucking bloated bureaucratic kind of...
It's not the most original concept in the world, Joe.
Yeah, do nothing red tape republic, pretty much.
So you're saying Megatron is Han Solo?
No, in this scenario, Megatron would be either Darth Vader or Emperor Palpatine. Either way, Kristen, the revolution seems to have been just, toppling an Autobot sort of height government that didn't really care about the little guy here.
So, like, a light fascist rule.
Optimus name drops Alpha Trion here, who is a character that we will see eventually in the Generation 1 cartoon.
I don't know this guy.
No, he's a master-like character. It doesn't really matter because he's dead, so...
Mm-hmm. What is made clear from this conversation is that he was both Optimus and Megatron's sensei.
I do have later on, yes, that we also have a you killed my sensei angle between Optimus and Megatron, because we find that apparently either Megatron didn't like what Alpha Trion was doing in terms of he set us on the path to freedom and you murdered him, and we get Kristen in the first episode. They're giving us Optimus versus Megatron.
Let's settle this once and for all. Robo. In
the first episode. At least this is different to where Optimus gets smacked around most of the time here.
The context for the setup of this is different than usual. That's fine. Here we get the idea that maybe Megatron and Optimus don't see each other very often, where in the cartoon they're next door neighbors.
This too, you could say that, Optimus, because his windshield on his truck mode is all cracked and stuff, you could say that he's low on energy and that's why he's getting his ass kicked here. Mm-hmm. So when they inevitably fight in the final episode, Optimus can win.
Megatron has some battle damage too. He's got a bullet hole and scratched like a cheetah came after him or something.
We get some more clashing ideals that after we reveal that Alpha Trion was killed, that Cybertron needs freedom, is what Optimus says, whereas Megatron says Cybertron needs strength.
Cool.
My strength.
Okay. Do you think Bumblebee is just like, ugh, I don't care?
He does not. I'm surprised Bumblebee did not take this opportunity to be like, all right, I'm out of here, bye.
Yeah. What Cybertron needs is for you guys to kiss my ass, I'm out of here.
Megatron pulls out his sword, and there is a very generic swing sword noise.
I told you that was one of my favorite parts of the episode. As if their whole ass bodies aren't made of metal. He shinks a blade.
Well, what is it, Kristen? The TV Tropes article for audible sharpness, I believe?
Yes, I understand the utility of it, but it was still very funny to me.
Megatron raises up his sword, and he is about to deal the killing blow, but Kristen, Alita 1 is here, and if you like, before we get into what happens next, because I have a very big question, if you don't mind telling me your impression of Alita 1's name, first of all.
Okay, so we had this conversation where before I watched it, you told me that there was a lady And I said, a lady person or a lady robot? And you said a lady robot, not RC. And I said, is it Optimus's girlfriend or whatever? Because I knew that she was a character. And you told me, yes, it's Alita 1. And I was like, that's just different words for Optimus Prime.
That is correct. At least it's the female version of Elite, I guess, maybe?
I don't care. Why isn't she Optima Prima?
Whoa. There's a question
for
you.
I am not a huge fan of Alita so far. I hope she gets better. I was having a conversation with Madeline recently about The Last of Us 2 and about revenge stories, and how when you take a revenge story that is like a classic, like male revenge story, just gender swapping the character doesn't make them a good female character. Looks at The Last of Us a little bit, and that's why things like Kill Bill are good. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Kristen, believe me, if you put in front of me The Last of Us and Kill Bill, I'd be like, yeah, I think I'd rather Kill Bill. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And there's some nuance as to why I have that opinion. You just like Uma Thurman, obviously.
I do. That's true. That is correct. And I don't own a PS4, so I couldn't even play it if I wanted to.
I could play it, and I choose not to.
There you go.
Anyway.
So my question here is, Kristen, Alita fires. She is in a sniping position far off somewhere, and fires the sword out of Megatron's hand, followed by immediately blowing the head off of a random seeker.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that was pretty funny.
My question is, why not shoot Megatron in the head unless, one, he's got a helmet that can deflect laser fire like Darth Vader, or two, it's like a Caesar and Lanius kind of situation where if you kill Megatron, someone like Starscream might ascend and just be like, yeah, genocide all Autobots. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
See, here's my question. Is that Seeker that doesn't have a head okay? What happened to that guy?
They can put it back on. Whatever. They put back on Starscream's
arm. That was
arm.
Skywarp's brother. He's like, oh, dude.
Essentially, this causes enough chaos that Megatron sends the Seekers after Alita, and it distracts so Optimus and Bumblebee and Wheeljack can start getting away, and Jetfire, I think just Jetfire and a few other Seekers start chasing after them.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a chase sequence that happens. Again, this is when I'm like looking at my watch, like, are we gonna move on from the single location that we've been in for 20 minutes?
Optimus also says Autobots retreat, and Bumblebee, not an Autobot. Not an Autobot, actually.
Wheeljack is also like, he's not an Autobot.
So Optimus orders, as they're running across some kind of bridge, for Alita to detonate some explosives, to which she demonstrates her other character trait of one, gun, and two, her going, Optimus!
Combativeness towards everything.
The bridge blows because Optimus orders her to do it, and they're fine, so everything works out okay.
She still finds a reason to be mad about us. This robot lady on her robot period or something. Woo! I have to make these jokes because you can't.
And Megatron gives us his next time gadget, next time! As we cut away to the Autobots meeting with Alita. Kristen, we have a thing that happens here that I liken to the Music Awards Part 1 episode of Gem, where Deirdre wants Gem or Jerrica or anyone to hear the song that she wrote.
Literally, anyone pay attention to me.
And keeps getting blown off, where twice in this episode we have Wheeljack go, Optimus, I gotta tell you about, and Optimus goes, not now, Wheeljack!
Optimus shows an interesting character trait of having poor listening skills here, which again, hey, it's something. Like, I'll take it for him to be what seems to be at this point kind of inept leader.
So Alita's first act as she walks into frame is to point her gun at Bumblebee, again, not the last time in this episode. Mm-hmm. And then immediately, all right, so this is structured very oddly. She walks in, says, who is this? Points her gun at Bumblebee.
Did she think that, like, a Decepticon was just casually strolling along the bridge side by side with Wheeljack? And she's like, wait a minute, he's in stealth mode. They didn't even notice him. I got this.
Turns to Optimus and goes, what was that? In referring to the explosion, which he's fine, whatever. And then she eventually goes, whatever, and turns back to Bumblebee and goes, wait a minute, who's this?
Whatever. So we have point of conversation of like, Bumblebee is an Energon scavenger. We were looking for Energon. No, we did not actually bring any back.
Oh, we get Kristen, potentially the most important thing in the episode, where I apologize to Alita here where I misrepresent her. She doesn't say, who are you to Bumblebee? She says, what are you? And Bumblebee, a little offended by this, goes, I think you mean, who am I? And Wheeljack, Kristen, ooh, we're earning that Y7 rating. He says he's a pain in the tuchus.
Oh, he calls him a pain in the ass. Yeah, pain in the ass. I wish he sounded more Italian.
Like you said, they found Energon, did not bring back any Energon, but Bumblebee is just pounding the table going, where's my money?
Yeah, he's like, okay, here's the thing. I found your Energon. It's not my fucking fault you didn't pick any up. I would like my money, please. Just like Cloud Strife.
After being called a pain in the ass, he refers to Wheeljack as Flashy Face, so Magnum burn there.
I wonder, see, I don't think ears are part of the face, which leads me to believe in this universe, are those his cheeks?
He's got to store a lot of nuts in there.
Yum, that's a lot of nuts.
Alita can't stop pointing her gun at Bumblebee here. Optimus quells the conversation, or at least shifts away from the subject by saying, we will talk about your payment at the base. And Bumblebee is like, I don't want to go to the base, I want my money.
Bumblebee is smart. He knows not to go to a second location, but unfortunately he does not get really a choice in the matter, because they're like, we're leaving, bye.
Yeah, he is offered the option of going to the Autobot base to potentially get paid, or staying out in the Decepticon Badlands where he will be brutally murdered because now Megatron knows who he is.
It's like, okay, that's fair.
So we get another Gem reference here, I write, even though Gem is certainly not the first instance of this, as well as considering the episode The Core also took place before Gem happened, but we have a hologram wall that they all go through to get to presumably the Ark or a large ship or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a whole... Okay, so they don't just live on the ship, which is probably for the best. There is like a whole wide open concealed space that has a big golden ship that we presume is the Ark in it. And Bumblebee's like, wow.
He also trips through the wall here, and I'm just glad that there wasn't a purple Olivia Newton-John telling him to drive through it.
Part of me was kind of hoping that because he wasn't an Autobot, it would just seal him out and they would be like, well, yes, if you want to come in, you gotta be an Autobot, buddy. And he's like, no, you got me.
Once we get inside the Ark here, there are, like, very darkly colored Autobots, so just to kind of, like, turn you away from them, because there's clearly one who is using, like, Mirage's model.
Are you sure that's not just Mirage, you idiot?
Characters who are reuses of resources, which I don't blame them, but it's, one of those things where you kind of look and be like, why is Mirage just kind of sitting there?
How do you know it's not just other Autobots that are too broke right now and they're going to get fixed up and be useful later?
No, exactly. Now, once they get into the Ark here and there are all these, like, Autobots strewn along the hallway, Optimus says that get these men to Red Alert. And I thought he meant all of the Autobots in the hallway, but actually just Wheeljack and Bumblebee.
We can't do anything for these other ones. A little bit salty that I have to deal with this clown. And I'm like, where's Ratchet? But whatever. Red Alert seems totally fine, so I won't complain that much.
Alita says that Optimus should go too. Again, kind of like, but Optimus. And Optimus is like, I gotta go. I can't go to the medic. I gotta go talk to Ultra Magnus, actually. So I'm gonna go do that.
Yeah, things to do. So later, babes.
Wheeljack tries bringing up the space bridge again and gets Jericho'd.
Optimus says, shut up. I gotta go talk to Ultra Magnus. And then I know he walks away, but I imagine he just turns into his truck and just, like, rolls backwards out of there with sunglasses on.
So we approach Ultra Magnus here.
I've heard of this guy. He has shoulder things.
He has shoulder pylons, yes, that's his big defining character trait.
I recognize that.
Kristen, Ultra Magnus is, I don't want to say a pessimist, potentially a realist, whereas Optimus is an idealist.
We have some dialogue here that implies that Ultra Magnus is somehow ranked above Optimus in whatever hierarchy they use, but the Matrix of Leadership chose Optimus, so Optimus is in charge.
Yes, he's both military commander and friend to Optimus Prime.
And Optimus is his boss now.
Man, Kristen, don't you hate when your friend is your boss?
It's so awkward. I guess you're technically my boss on the podcast.
Man, Kristen, don't you hate when your brother is your boss?
Fire me, you asshole.
Oh, man, I can't fire family, but then it'll look like nepotism.
Well, no, you can't fire me because there's no one else who will do this podcast with you.
That's true, actually.
So I am your boss.
Ultra Magnus, he's like, okay, Optimus, I get it. Like, the strategy that we have right now, it's the best we could do, but it's not working. There is almost no Energon left.
Kind of feels like the war is over.
The resources are spread very thin. I fear the war is lost. And Optimus does his, like, rah-rah. Hey, didn't you say that as long as we have sparks in us here? And Ultra Magnus is like, I don't fucking... Look, we are all going to die.
We're gonna go extinct. Like, isn't survival a little bit more important than your cute little idealism right now? And he implores Optimus to sign this mystery treaty. And Optimus is like, nah.
Now, if only he implored him to reconsider, Optimus might go, okay.
He used the wrong wording.
Ultra Magnus gets a little pissed off at this. He says that, Optimus, you're as stubborn as Megatron. They're not so different, he and him.
That's a stupid way to phrase that. But I like it.
So we cut to the med bay here, Kristen, and we get Sideswipe making a little cameo. He has one line
Fucking
of dialogue.
who? I don't know who that is.
Asswipe, excuse me.
Oh, yes. That's him. Now I recognize him.
And as they're walking in here, Alita's like, hey, I got some people for you to fix, Red Alert. And Red Alert, his first line, oh, you know, the Wheeljack is beyond my medical capabilities.
We can't prescribe anything for Italians. There's no getting rid of that. I'm sorry.
Wheeljack hands over some thoraxal nodes, as they are called, I guess.
Hey, the weird jargon that they use in this, it's a lot more polished than it is in the original cartoon.
You're right, it's better. Things like the, sparks and mines, you replace heart with spark. Mm-hmm. Wheeljack says, polish my tailpipe at one point.
Ew.
As an expression of surprise.
Like a butter my biscuit.
Essentially, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which, ew, also gross.
I'm trying to help. I can imagine a situation where in, like, the original cartoon, this exact same exchange happens, drawn way worse. But Wheeljack hands over, like, I got you guys some ass pieces.
Thoraxal nodes here. Sideswipe is like, do you have Energon? And, no, sorry.
I don't even know when he picked up that shit, so am I impressed? Am I disappointed? I'm not sure.
It was hanging out outside the med bay, like, as a delivery, and it was like, oh, I found this, actually.
Surprise.
Red Alert starts checking out Bumblebee here and starts checking him out as...
Ooh. He gets a little bit touchy-feely. I'm into it.
He starts going on about the Autobot cause, again, basically. Just, get a little bit of his backstory, like, I was a doctor before the war, but they gave me a laser, and now I'm a soldier.
I was a poet, a scientist. Now must we all be soldiers? Starscream, do you like being a soldier? Yes.
And Kristen, a second girl who's not RC shows up here. She is blue. Her name is Chromia.
Didn't recognize her.
Well, no, because she's, I believe, a background character in the one episode of Transformers that Alita 1 is in that has recently risen to prominence because they realized, fuck, we have RC and Alita 1 and Black Arachnia, but she's a spider, so we can't have her as a car.
I don't like the lady-shaped robots.
You would hate Black Arachnia, Kristen.
Oh no, did she have a tiny waist and a real big ass?
Oh, I'll show you a fun picture of Black Arachnia after this here.
I know about sexy spider women like James and the Giant Peach.
Excuse me? There's a sexy spider woman in James and the Giant Peach?
And she's French. And now we both have things to show each other.
Chromia's comment is, we're all soldiers now, which almost immediately her thunder gets stolen because Optimus comes into the scene here, and before he can say word one...
He slides in on his Heelys.
Bumblebee goes, fuck off, I'm not joining the Autobots.
Optimus is like, I wasn't going to say that.
And Alita is like laughing because he very clearly was. And at least Optimus is self-aware enough to be like, am I that transparent? Fuck.
So this is a fun thing over here too with the Cloud strife and of everything. Cloud used to be a all capital letter soldier, which is like a class of worker, and will repeatedly tell people now, I'm an ex-soldier. I used to be a soldier. I'm not a soldier anymore. Bumblebee is just Cloud strife.
Bumblebee, yeah, there's more conflicting ideologies here. Bumblebee saying that the Autobots are fighting to win the war, and that is what is causing them to lose the war.
I'm not sure what the logic is there, but okay. Fucking Robo Shakespeare.
And Optimus being like, we fight for the day where we don't have to fight, etc., etc. Bumblebee adds his, I'm no soldier, and then Optimus says, neither were any of us, which is ostensibly the exact same thing that Chromia said, which I can understand.
Like, I just said that.
I can understand why you didn't notice Chromia, Kristen, considering the more important character says the exact same thing as her a few seconds later.
Again, I think I just thought that she was Alita.
Bumblebee is about to walk out here, only to be blocked by Alita and Hound, and Alita...
I thought that was Hound! God, I'm so good at this!
Alita points her fucking gun at Bumblebee again!
She just briefly considers blowing his head off, and Optimus gets a little bit cranky.
He yells, we are not the Decepticons, and let him go. So, Alita and Hound, by the way, his misgivings with this was the fact that Bumblebee might blab and tell the Decepticons about the base, which, that's fair.
It's realistic. They don't need to blow his fucking head off.
No, Alita went too far there. Yes, she pointed the gun directly at Bumblebee and mused, like, she was a little playful about it, but she very clearly was like, I'm gonna blow this motherfucker's teeth off.
Oh, no. He doesn't have teeth, and he hasn't said anything about teeth. Joe, I swear to God, if in this cartoon he says anything about teeth, I'm going to shit my pants and I'm going to quit doing this podcast.
The Autobots step aside here and let Bumblebee walk. Ultra Magnus is hanging out outside of the med bay here, and seeing Bumblebee leave, he kind of, like, we zoom in slowly on him, and he's like, as we cut to a stadium where I wrote Megatron is giving a Hitler speech.
I was going to say, without even seeing the way you described it, is we cut now to a Hitler speech.
So, the Autobots refuse the treaty. There can no longer be peace, etc., etc. Starscream is in the crowd here. He is clapping, which shows that his arm is fine now, all fixed.
I think he pauses to admire it.
He does. Which Jetfire then shoulder checks him and says, "You want to lose that arm again, motherfucker?"
They are really kind of going hard on Jetfire, seeming to be just kind of an asshole. And I don't totally understand how he's going to become good later, but okay. Maybe they fry his fucking brain like Devastator.
Jetfire tells Megatron that the Seekers are all out searching for the remnants of the Autobots here, and Optimus Prime will be dead as soon as they find him.
And Starscream karate chops into the conversation. And he says, "Listen, Megatron, if I were in charge of the Seekers, we would have already had Prime dead by now. It's gonna happen. Hey, consider putting me, Starscream, in charge."
Your ambition will be your undoing, Starscream.
And we have a cute little moment here where Megatron seems to compliment Starscream, where Jetfire's like, "I think your arrogance will also be a problem." And Megatron's like, "I actually like that he's arrogant. He's sassy. I love it."
It's nice that Megatron and Starscream can appreciate one another a little bit.
He's got some moxie. There's more to him than just the piss that makes him up.
Regardless, the only way that they can find Optimus is through weaponizing his weaknesses, of course, Kristen. Honor, brotherhood, love. He's gonna kiss him, and that's how they bring him out.
I told you, Joe. So there's, so we already had the comment about where they get the fabric for the flags. There's also a figure approaching Decepticon Dome who has a cloak on. A ragged cloak, like some kind of post-apocalyptic drifter.
A ragged cloak here, yes. And Kristen, who could this mysterious figure be with the white hands and the shoulder pylons?
Joe, so I don't know if the white hands were supposed to be a tip-off, because that's not something I noticed. But here is the thing. Visual language. God, what an improvement. I looked and I was like, oh, that's Ultra Magnus. Whoa, intrigue, what's going on here? I understood everything that happened in this episode, which is a strange, unfamiliar feeling.
That is the end of the first episode, by the way. The cloaked figure going to grab the cloak and pull it off of his head. Clearly Ultra Magnus, yes.
I guess he wants to go kiss Megatron or something. I don't know. We'll find out.
The white hands are a dead giveaway to me, but the shoulder pylons, I think, are the big visual cue, because you get like little flashes of them in this too, and it is something to where you as a viewer know without the cartoon actually going out and telling you, hey, this is Ultra Magnus.
For me, already being like only vaguely familiar with Ultra Magnus to begin with. Wow. Good job, cartoon.
So, Kristen, as a first episode here, I'd say that I'm cautiously optimistic with the series.
You're Optimist Prime?
Oh, I'm an Optimist Prime on this one.
Just in case they haven't heard the other episode where I make that joke.
With 6 whole episodes, pacing might be a little bit of an issue considering not too much happens, but I don't know if a ton needs to happen considering we're already like at the brink in terms of the war here.
Mm-hmm. Considering, I guess, going in I didn't understand tonally what this would be like, I was pleasantly surprised, because if someone tried to be like, hey, Kristen, it's like Transformers, but like gritty, I think I would be like, I'd rather die. But it was still, again, I think modernly cartoon and animation has come a really long way, just as a medium in general, so it's a lot easier for me to just enjoy this, relatively well-written thing, instead of the entire time being like, well, this is funny because it's so terrible.
Boy, it's a wonder that 35 years makes that much of a difference.
You would certainly hope that they would get good at it at some point, right?
Now's the point in the evening where we'll list off all of the fun contact things where you can reach us. You could follow us on Twitter, follow the podcast at cwtapod.
You can follow me at Marina Kazam.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on SoundCloud, on Stitcher Radio, even on YouTube. Leave a rating, give a review, do whatever you feel like. You can drop us a line, cwtapod@gmail.com, where you can tell us all about why one might feel the need to constantly point a gun at a neutral force and what lip balm Megatron might use to stay sexy.
Oh, like one of those plumping kinds that has, like, bee venom in it. Do you know about those?
Bee venom?
Well, I guess that's what you call the stuff that's in the stingers or whatever.
Well, I know, I know about, like, Burt's Bees, but, like,
Well,
this
no.
sounds like extreme Burt's Bees.
Basically, it's types of lip product that purposely cause allergic reactions in your lips to make them plump up.
Oh, God, that sounds
Apparently,
terrible.
apparently they feel pretty interesting. It's like the drink at Galaxy's Edge that makes you mouth numb.
Ugh. Well, Kristen, that will be all for episode 1 of this side venture, and join us again for the next installment of NTFWFC TC1 STSTURP.
Oh god, the next thing is just called episode 2, so we don't know what's coming in the mail.